This is the Atlanta Small Business Show with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Hi everyone, welcome into the Atlanta Small Business Show. I'm Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for joining us today. Today we're very excited to speak with Maisha Cox, who's owner of EcoMaids franchise, and Leslie Cuban. I know that you know this young lady. She has been with us a number of times to talk about all things franchise, and she is a franchise industry expert and owner of FranNet here in Atlanta. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Sure,
Great
sure.
to be here.
So Maisha, you're the star of today's show. Tell our viewers all about EcoMaids. We're dying to hear about this.
So we are a green, eco-friendly residential and commercial cleaning service. So whenever we enter into your home or into your office, we provide a service where we use our products which have no harmful chemicals or toxins in any of our products, and we really do stand behind that. Our cleaning products are Green Seal and EPA Safer Choice certified. And so when we use these products, it makes a safe environment for your family, for your pets, and for the environment.
Wow, that's fantastic. And that's a big factor right now. First of all, everybody wants to be eco-friendly, and then of course the other side of that is to make sure that our babies and kids and our kids crawling around, our grandkids and our pets are safe. So
That's right.
I know when we have our house cleaned, and that is a concern, that, you know, what chemicals are they using? So your customers are in good hands on that, right? Nothing to worry about.
That's right. So we have scientifically formulated our cleaning products to contain no heavy metals, no dyes, no carcinogens, and no chlorine, while still cleaning and disinfecting all the surfaces in your home and office.
Wow, that is fantastic. And then it's also not as abrasive for somebody that's breathing them in that might have an allergy or something like that to, you know, some of the many chemicals that a lot of other made companies will use, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
It is good for people with allergies, for people with asthma, or people
wow,
that
that's
are
huge.
allergic to anything.
Yeah.
That usually comes in a lot of chemicals that people use to clean their homes.
Yeah, that is fantastic. And tell us a little bit about your career and your background thus far. You're a young lady, so it can't be that you've had too long a career out there. But tell us a little bit about your background, your career to get you to this point, and of course then to launch, you know, the new franchise.
So prior to being a franchise owner, I was a product manager in the restaurant and hospitality industry. And when COVID-19 impacted that industry, it also affected my job.
Wow.
And yeah. And then for the first time in my life, I had to figure out what I wanted to do next.
Yeah.
And so I've always wanted to own my own business. And before that, the timing has just never been right for me.
Yeah.
So I wanted to own my own business to, you know, grow and build something that I could pass on to my family in the future. And so I thought it was the perfect opportunity to look into business ownership.
Yeah, for sure. Leslie, has that been pretty much the case that you see out there, where one type of industry struggles through COVID, maybe has to lay off some people, and those people say, well, you know, there's an opportunity in doing this over here, much like Maisha. Have you been seeing that develop?
It's really been interesting, you know, certainly since COVID came to visit and is staying, beginning in about mid-March. When things really started to shift dramatically. You know, we have in the industry, of course, have been, I don't know how many conference calls and webinars and presentations about how small business, how franchising is adjusting to a day-to-day changing new normal with all of this. And it's been interesting to see a really wide span of people's experiences. There are certain businesses that just are not designed to be able to pivot very easily. You know, businesses where you've got to have hands-on contact with your customer are the ones, you know, so food and beverage in a lot of cases, personal services have really had some challenges. But then on the other side of the spectrum, people in home services businesses, some of them are having their best year ever because people have been home more. They're noticing all the things around the house that need to be addressed or need to be fixed or need to be cleaned. And so on the other side of the spectrum, we have clients that are so busy that they're having to turn away business and other kinds of franchise businesses. So we're
Yeah.
definitely seeing a resurgence of interest and growth in franchises servicing homeowners in all the needs that they have.
Sure.
And there's increased demand for those services because people are paying more attention to needing them.
And Maisha, did you pick to open up a maid franchise or service, I should say, because that's on everybody's mind right now. You walk into your own home and you're like, am I cleaning this the right way? Our offices, are we cleaning these the right way? Is that obviously that's maybe one of these industries, I'm sure it is one of these industries that will do well during times like this and beyond, right?
Yeah, so that's part of the reason why I chose this franchise. This franchise also had a lot of resources that I could use that really made my business strong, but also it was an essential business. And that is very important in the COVID-19 pandemic era.
Yeah, for sure. And did you know that you wanted this particular franchise when you called Leslie and said, "Hey, I want to do something in the way of a franchise, and this is the one I want"? Or did she? I've spoken to a number of her clients, and she said, "Hey, or Leslie laid out an entire array of different options for us, and we landed on this one over time." Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so most certainly not. So when I went to Leslie and she came back to me with a list of franchisors based on my experience and interest, I was very surprised.
Yeah.
And very hesitant. My background is in technology. I had this preconceived notion of what those businesses should be.
Right.
And so I was very hesitant, and I had to make a decision that I was going to go through due diligence, have an open mind, and then make an assessment of whether or not I wanted to move forward with any of these businesses in the future.
Right. Leslie, were you when she came to you? Walk me through that. How did you know that this would be the right fit for her, or could be?
Well, and Maisha, I remember your reaction because we were on a Zoom call with your husband when we were initially talking about the set of different possibilities, and I remember the look on your face. It's like, oh. So,
yeah. What do you mean?
Actually,
I'm going to be in the maid business? What are you
right.
talking about? Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's actually a really common instance where people are typically quite surprised at the type of business that they are really well suited for.
Right.
And
we've talked about that very issue on previous shows.
Yes,
It always amazes me. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, very rarely is the business that someone chooses one that they would have picked off of a list if they were just searching for, business ideas on the internet. And I think a lot of that has to do with, and this is very natural to kind of think, well, if I own a cleaning business, that means I'm cleaning.
Right.
And, I didn't get my education and build up my, skill set in corporate America to now be clean. And so, but it's quite common for people to mistake the function of the business with the role of the owner.
That's right.
And so that's what we really focus on is if you own that business, what are your day-to-day responsibilities? What talents do you need to have? And in the case of EcoMaids, Maisha is going to be building a team of people who then grow into management responsibilities and will kind of have her own org chart as the CEO of her company. And so it's using a very different skill set than one might think on the surface.
That's right.
When they look at what the business is about.
Yeah, I've spoken to a number of your guests that you bring on the show, and that seems to be a common theme. That you will line somebody up that was an accountant for the last 30 years of their life, and now they're making donuts in the mall and having a blast doing it and making all kinds of money, or some other type of industry that had nothing to do with accounting.
Right.
However, accounting is part of their responsibility now in running their own company, right? So it's a good fit there, right?
Yes, and so it's rarely do people have industry experience in the franchise businesses that they're choosing,
right?
But they have to get comfortable with what their role would be and the skills that go along with it.
That's right.
Something that they already bring to the table in terms of a soft skill, like leading employees or project management or customer service.
Sure.
But that's what you're investing in the franchise for, is to learn that business.
Yeah.
So if you already had a lot of industry experience, you probably wouldn't need the franchise to start that.
Yeah. Now, Maisha, you're on the threshold of opening up this business. You're all ready to go. You're just a week or so away, which is pretty exciting stuff. How did you do all of this that fast? I mean, if you got into, wanting to open up your own company or specifically franchise, and COVID really just hit in late March, early April, that was just a few months ago, or maybe 4 or 5 months ago, and here you are ready to open. Walk us through that.
Okay, so I got laid off in April, and then met with Leslie in April.
Okay.
And really started figuring out the franchise, I believe, in June.
Okay.
Early June. And from there, it was just me just going for it. The franchise gives you a list of things that they want you to do.
Right.
And I just went for it.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. I mean, and you're talking like 90 days, and you're going to be generating revenue here shortly, right?
Yep, and that's the strength of the franchise.
Yeah.
They help you, they give you resources, they tell you exactly what you need to do. So it's really a checklist. And
Right.
it's up to the franchisee how quickly or how slowly he or she wants to move forward.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And Leslie,
and
isn't that one of the great things about purchasing a franchise or going into a franchise system, is that all of the heavy lifting and the trial and error has already been done, right? That the franchise says, or the company says, no, this is the model that works best. Don't overthink it because we've already spent thousands, if not millions of dollars to get to this winning combination or winning formula, right? That you're buying into, right?
Yes, the hallmark of a strong franchise system is they already have paved a pathway.
That's right.
For this is the successful mechanism for recruiting employees.
Right.
In a business.
Right.
This is, how you advertise to this sort of customer base.
Sure.
This is what you don't need to put time or money into because it doesn't really align with our core business model. So.
Sure.
And what's nice about Maisha's business with EcoMaids is it's a young emerging brand that she was able to get in early with the brand and capture some great markets that she'll be able to grow into.
That's great.
But the parent organization that EcoMaids is a part of is a very well-resourced, very well-experienced organization in other home service brands.
And that means so much when you've got a deep bench of experience, for sure, right?
And know-how of where the marketing prowess needs to be.
Yeah.
So I love situations like that where people can, capture great markets to be able to grow into.
Yeah.
But the franchisor isn't, trying to figure this out as their very first rodeo.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
hence, Maisha is able to get up and running. That's a very relative quick period of time to get a business open from the time that you've decided to do it. But
and then I would imagine, Maisha, what you looked at as well is that as you grow with this kind of a new setup or new franchise system, you too can grow your business with other markets, right? So that if in the event it's successful in this market that you're in, you can maybe buy the adjoining market, or walk me through that. Is that, am I saying that right? That you've got an early opportunity to grow with that franchise?
Yeah, so as Leslie said, it's an emergent business. So they had prime territory. So I ended up getting 2 territories. So I'm really EcoMaids with Smyrna, Sandy Springs, and Brookhaven, which is prime real estate
great markets.
in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And
those
then
people have the money for maids, that's for sure. So
say that again?
I say those people all have the money for maids. This should be
they will.
It's a great market.
It is a great market. And then the good part is the adjoining markets are free territory right now.
Yeah.
So if I can expand and do well and grow my business, I can also purchase adjoining territories to grow my business.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's a huge opportunity. What advice would you give to others considering going into their own business for the first time? And I'll start Maisha with you, and then of course you can do the follow-up, Leslie, if you would, on that.
So my advice for people going into business for the first time is really to take the first step, which to me I think is always the hardest part. Going out and researching and exploring what business ownership looks like, and what type of business opportunities are available to you.
Yep. And then and then Leslie, go ahead and pick up on that, because I know that you've got some advice in that area as well.
Yeah, I would say before going out and like searching, businesses for sale or businesses that I get into. I mean, there's a lot of research that one can do.
Yeah.
But one can easily go down a never-ending rabbit hole with that, where it becomes, more and more confusing. So I think I encourage starting with a little bit of a self-inventory first. getting really clear on what one's skills would be that could contribute to running a new business.
Right.
Defining what your why is.
Yeah.
What is it that you're looking to get out of business ownership?
Mm-hmm.
That may influence what type of business will really be the best vehicle to fulfill that why.
Right.
For some people, it's more flexibility with their time. For some, it's being able to make a ton of money. For some, it's working with a family member.
Yeah.
There's usually multiple reasons, but it will really define the what. Is starting to get clear on the why. And then thirdly is to make sure you have family support in this, that if you have a family, you have a family business, whether or not your spouse or your family member is engaged in the business at all with you, they have a voice and a vote. So, early on making sure your spouse or key family members are cheerleaders and are supportive of this effort of getting into business for the first time.
Yeah, for sure. And then stay away from those naysayers it seems like whenever you somebody comes up with a good idea and they go to their family and they go to their friends and they can find some naysayers out there early and say, well, if that's so good, how come it hasn't already been done? Or, don't waste all your money on that. Or, do you really want to put your investment in that? And you hear that so many times from entrepreneurs, successful ones that went on to, overlook all of that and not listen to that noise out there and say, no, I've done my research and this is a successful operation and a successful franchise, and I'm going to move ahead on it, right? Because there's a lot of people out there that maybe want to tear your dream out of your hands, and you got to be careful of that, right?
Yes, that's very true.
Yeah, for sure. And it could be in the way of they feel good in doing it because they care for you, and their concern is your well-being and your financial well-being, and then you might make a mistake, but you can't live like that. You got to jump out, and if you feel good about something and you've done the research and you've got the guidance with somebody like Leslie that says, do this, don't do this, this is what I think your next step should be, and then you're in good hands, right?
Yeah, so I remember when I took the EcoMaids to my family. So my husband is my biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
He's all for it. But I do know other members of my family, they were all very concerned.
Sure.
I was making a big mistake.
It's very natural.
But you just have to believe in it and just keep on.
Yeah, we hear it all the time from very successful entrepreneurs, and then some entrepreneurs that didn't succeed in their business, and they said, I have no regrets. It's a part of being a successful entrepreneur, and they brush it off and go on to their next venture. It doesn't mean that it's got to every single time it's got to work, but certainly to move forward, and for those that want to be in their own business, franchising I am a huge believer in it. If you've got a set system already in place, why try to reinvent why try to reinvent the ball? Just there it is. It's put together very well, and all you got to do is run it, and you can be a very successful self-employed person out there making a ton of money. And to your point, you can buy other markets, where you're at right now in that system. So. And that's not always the case, right, Leslie? You might come into a franchise system that says, oh, no, there's only this franchise only this market's available. All the others are gone right now, right?
Right, and it's kind of the catch-22.
Yeah.
And most people who are starting to explore this, they do encounter this at some point in their research journey.
Sure.
Of course, there's the appeal of being a part of a brand that everybody already knows.
Right.
It's on the tip of everybody's tongue.
Yeah, makes it.
The reality, and there's some real benefit to that. There's no doubt about that. But the challenge is that the people who are really benefiting from that are the ones who became a part of the brand before it was a household name.
That's right.
And did take a little bit of a risk, who took a calculated risk.
Yeah.
And their due diligence, and were able to capture the best markets for owning that business.
That's right. That's right.
And another benefit to aligning with a younger brand is you have more input. You have more direct access to the leadership of that company. Typically, you're a part of fine-tuning that system as it grows. And for people who have some kind of an entrepreneurial bent, that tends to be attractive.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's no question about it. And as I said, I'm a big believer. Whenever one of my friends or somebody that knows that I'm, I own a couple of businesses and obviously I host the show, Atlanta Small Business, they'll reach out to me and say, what do you recommend I do? First thing I always recommend is look for a franchise that's in that field and explore that first before you go out on your own. This is my humble advice here, but it seems to work well. And if there is a franchise, look into going that road versus opening up your own under your own name. Maisha, did you find that to be the case? Did you ever ask yourself, well, maybe I can bypass the, opening up this brand with this franchise and I'll just do it myself?
I did not, because once I started going through the franchise process, I realized that I can really capitalize on their business model and their turnkey model, and
Right.
my business could ramp up so much more quickly
Yeah.
with the franchise than I could do on my own.
That's right. That's right. One of the reasons that we love having Leslie in too is that somebody may think about opening up a franchise. So what do? They go to the internet and they Google, and then they start to Google all the different franchises, right? And now they're really confused because there's literally hundreds of them, right, of different franchises to get. So what do? You start calling each one and you send me your prospectus or tell me about your program or this and that. And now your mind is like completely out, it's fried over all these franchises. What I like about what Leslie's offers is the fact that it's a consultant type, it's a consultancy that you can sit down with one person that has been down this road 100, maybe 1,000 times with other franchisees or prospective franchisees to say, let me help you through this process. You don't know what you don't know right now. And a lot of people can get completely blindsided if they go out there alone, right, Leslie?
Well, I'm pretty biased in thinking that there's obviously a lot of value in what a good consultant in the space and who's
That's right.
walk the talk of being a franchisee, knowing what it's like to have a franchise agreement and pay royalties. I certainly think there's value in getting some help with that type of expertise.
Yeah.
But it's really about I think that one of the biggest values is choosing the right business for the right reasons,
Right.
and that's really the goal of my work with people is, someone could choose a good business, but it may not be aligned for them specifically for all kinds of reasons that they
Yep.
wouldn't even know to think about.
That's
So,
right. Until they make the purchase, get into it, and then go, what have I done? I don't really want to be doing this right now, right? Somebody
It's
should have
really-
told me this.
And it's really back to what we were speaking about earlier is the skill alignment. And
Right.
so, Maisha and I talked a lot about her background and what she likes to do, what she'd like to learn
Sure.
by being in her own business. And I probably grilled her a little too much on that, but being clear on understanding what your role as the owner will be.
Right. That's right.
It's really, and focusing on that, versus having to be in love with the product or service. You want to like what the product or service is. You need to feel that it delivers value to your customer and to your community, but it doesn't have to be your hobby. And so it's really more about making sure that your talents are aligned with the model and that it can take you where you want to go.
That's right.
Personally, professionally, and financially.
Yeah. A friend of mine owns 100
Can
super.
I add something to that, Jim?
Sure.
So I would add that before I met Leslie, I was one of those people that went online and Googled and got the top 100 franchises and looked
Everybody
at them.
does, right?
And and it was overwhelming.
Yeah, it is. It really
and
is.
so I didn't call anyone, but I did decide in that moment, this is too much to deal with.
That's right.
I'm not interested.
That's right.
And then I was really glad that I went to a franchise introduction seminar hosted by FriendNet and got introduced to Leslie.
Yeah.
Because she was able to pare it down to my needs as opposed to me just searching through hundreds and hundreds of franchises.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It would be much like, if you said, well, I'm going to open up a corporation and I'm going to open up or start a will or put together a will. And yeah, you could, I guess, do that on your own, especially with some of the things that are out there. But would you, and would you really feel good about it versus going to a professional, sitting down with an attorney, and mapping it out? I could, I guess, do my own taxes. There's no way in God's green earth that I would even try. I'm going to go to a tax professional. When it comes to franchising, people that are listening, you need to go to a Leslie Cuban, if not Leslie Cuban, but somebody that's out there that helps in a big way. And obviously Leslie's very successful at this and has helped many people succeed in their own businesses. And I was going to say earlier that a friend of mine owns 100 discount hair locations and supercuts, and and he's never cut one strand of hair, nor is he licensed to do it, nor does he ever care to do it. You know, what he likes is the business model, the return on investment. And it was funny because people said to him, you know, how much money can you make, you know, with one location? And he said, you can't. I'm not going to make a whole lot of money on one location, but you make a lot on multiple locations. And today, you know, 15 years later, he has 100 of them. So you can imagine.
Wow.
And as I said, he's never cut one strand of hair. So I think it's going to be probably the same for you. You probably won't clean any homes per se or offices, but I see you with multiple locations and markets and doing very well. So I want to thank both of you very much. And you're located right here. The markets again are Sandy Springs and
Smyrna, Sandy Spring, Brookhaven.
Wow, great markets to be in. I wish you the best of luck for people that are listening that need a good cleaning service. You know where to go now. It's eco-friendly, which is fantastic, and you know, EcoMaids. That's where it's at. That's where everybody's head is at these days. We need it to be eco-friendly, and we need a maid. That's for sure. So. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us here on the Atlanta Small Business Show. We'd love to do a follow-up with you if we can to see how things are, you know, moving along in the next 6 months. If you've come this far in the last 90 days, I can imagine where you're going to be in 6 months from now. So.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you.
Good to see you again.
Okay, you too.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching Atlanta Small Business Show with Jim Fitzpatrick. This has been a JBF Business Media production.